Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Champagne flutes clinked, and the scent of hairspray mingled with the sweet aroma of flowers that adorned every surface. It was a day of celebration, a day to honor one woman's journey and the love that had brought her to this moment. In the center of it all stood Valerie, her eyes sparkling with joy as she took in the scene around her. She'd dreamed of this day for so long, but the reality was even more magical than she'd imagined. Her friends had gone all out to make her bachelorette party an unforgettable experience. "Val, darling, are you ready for your transformation?" called out Zoe, Valerie's maid of honor, as she swept into the room with a team of stylists in tow. Valerie's heart skipped a beat. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied, her voice tinged with a mix of nervousness and anticipation. The stylists set up their equipment, turning the penthouse into a glamorous pop-up salon. Makeup palettes were laid out like an artist's tools, and an array of hairstyling products stood at the ready. "All right, ladies, let's get this show on the road." Zoe clapped her hands, ushering Valerie to a plush chair in front of a large mirror. As the makeover began, Valerie couldn't help but reflect on her journey. It had been a long and sometimes difficult road to get to this point, but every step had led her to become the woman she was always meant to be. Now, surrounded by her closest friends, she felt a sense of acceptance and love that warmed her from the inside out.
"So, Val, spill the details," prompted Jess, one of her bridesmaids, as a makeup artist began working on Valerie's face.
"How did Alex propose? We want all the juicy bits."
Valerie's face lit up at the mention of her fiancé.
"Oh, it was perfect," she gushed. "We were at the beach, watching the sunset. Alex had been acting strange all day, but I just thought it was because of work stress. Then, out of nowhere, he got down on one knee and pulled out this gorgeous ring." Her friends cooed and sighed, leaning in to hear more. "He told me that from the moment we met, he knew I was special, that he loved me for who I am, completely and without reservation, and then he asked me to marry him." "And you said yes, obviously," Zoe chimed in with a grin.
"Not right away,"
Valerie admitted with a laugh. "I was so overwhelmed, I just stood there crying for a good minute before I could get the word out." The room erupted in laughter, and Valerie felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. These women had been by her side through every step of her transition, offering unwavering support and love. They'd celebrated her victories and held her hand through the tough times, never once making her feel anything less than wholly accepted. As the makeup artist worked her magic, contouring and highlighting Valerie's features, another stylist began to work on her hair. Valerie closed her eyes, allowing herself to be pampered and transformed. "You know," she said softly, "there was a time when I never thought I'd have a day like this. When I was growing up, feeling trapped in a body that didn't match who I was inside, I couldn't even imagine being a bride." The room grew quiet, her friends listening intently. "But look at me now," Valerie continued, her voice growing stronger. "I'm marrying the love of my life, surrounded by the most amazing friends a girl could ask for. It's like a dream come true." Zoe reached out and squeezed Valerie's hand. "You deserve all of this, and more, Val. You're one of the strongest, most beautiful people I know, inside and out." "Hear, hear!" the other girls chorused, raising their champagne glasses in a toast. As the makeover continued, the conversation flowed freely. They reminisced about college days, laughed over embarrassing stories, and shared their hopes for the future. Through it all, Valerie felt a sense of belonging that she'd fought hard to achieve. "All right, time for the grand reveal," announced the lead stylist, spinning Valerie's chair to face the mirror. Valerie gasped as she took in her reflection. Her makeup was flawless, enhancing her natural beauty while giving her a radiant, bridal glow. Her hair cascaded down in soft waves, adorned with delicate floral pins that caught the light. "Oh my God," she breathed, reaching up to touch her face in disbelief. "You look absolutely stunning," Jess said, her eyes misty with tears. "Like a true bride," added another friend, Emma. Valerie stood up, smoothing down her dress. She turned to face her friends, feeling a surge of confidence and joy. "Thank you all so much. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Group hug!" someone called out, and suddenly Valerie found herself enveloped in a warm embrace, surrounded by the love and support of her friends. As they broke apart, Zoe clapped her hands. "All right, ladies, it's time for the main event. Val, are you ready to try on some wedding dresses?" Valerie's eyes widened. "You didn't!" "Oh, we did," Zoe grinned, gesturing to a rack of stunning white gowns that had been wheeled into the room. "We've got a selection of dresses for you to try on. Consider it a preview for the real thing." Excitement bubbled up inside Valerie as she approached the rack, running her fingers over the luxurious fabrics. Each dress was more beautiful than the last: flowing chiffon, delicate lace, shimmering satin. "I don't even know where to start," she admitted, overwhelmed by the choices. "How about this one?" Emma suggested, pulling out a sleek, form-fitting gown with intricate beadwork. Valerie nodded, and her friends helped her into the dress. As she stood in front of the full-length mirror, she felt a lump form in her throat. The dress hugged her curves perfectly, accentuating her figure in a way that made her feel truly feminine. "Well?" Zoe prompted, watching Valerie's reaction closely. "It's beautiful," Valerie said, turning to see the back of the dress. "But I'm not sure if it's the one, you know?" They went through several more dresses, each one eliciting oohs and ahs from the group. Valerie loved aspects of each gown, but none of them felt quite right. Then, as she was about to give up, Jess pulled out one last dress. "Try this one," she urged, holding up a romantic ball gown with a sweetheart neckline and layers of tulle. The moment Valerie slipped into the dress, she knew. It was perfect. The bodice hugged her torso, giving way to a full, princess-like skirt that made her feel like she was floating. Delicate lace appliques adorned the bodice and scattered down the skirt, catching the light with every movement. As her friends helped her with the buttons and adjusted the train, Valerie couldn't take her eyes off her reflection. For the first time, she truly saw herself as a bride. "Oh, Val," Zoe breathed, coming to stand beside her. "You look absolutely breathtaking." Valerie turned to face her friends, tears glistening in her eyes. "This is it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is the dress I want to marry Alex in." The room erupted in cheers and applause. Her friends surrounded her, offering hugs and words of admiration. In that moment, Valerie felt more beautiful and more herself than she ever had before. As the excitement settled, they helped Valerie out of the dress and back into her party outfit. The day was far from over, and there were more surprises in store. All right, ladies, Zoe announced, holding up a blindfold. It's time for the next part of our adventure. Val, if you'll allow me? Laughing, Valerie allowed Zoe to tie the blindfold around her eyes. She felt herself being guided out of the penthouse and into an elevator. The anticipation built as they traveled down, and then she was being led through what felt like a lobby and out onto the street. The sounds and smells of the city enveloped her as they walked. She could hear her friends giggling and whispering around her, clearly excited about whatever they had planned. Finally, they came to a stop. Okay, Val, Zoe said, her voice brimming with excitement. You can take off the blindfold now. Valerie reached up and untied the cloth, blinking as her eyes adjusted to the light. When her vision cleared, she gasped. They were standing in front of a sleek white limousine, decked out with ribbons and a bride-to-be banner. Your chariot awaits, my lady, Jess said with a dramatic bow, opening the door. Laughing, Valerie climbed in, followed by her friends. The interior was luxurious, with plush leather seats and a fully stocked bar. As they settled in, Zoe popped open a bottle of champagne, filling flutes for everyone. A toast, she said, raising her glass.
To Valerie, the most beautiful bride-to-be, inside and out. May your wedding day be as radiant as you are, and may your marriage be filled with love, laughter, and endless happiness.
To Valerie! The group chorused, clinking their glasses together. As they sipped their champagne, the limo pulled away from the curb, whisking them off to their next destination. Valerie leaned back in her seat, feeling a sense of contentment wash over her. She thought about how far she'd come, from the scared, confused child she'd once been to the confident, loved woman she was now. I have to say, Emma piped up, interrupting Valerie's thoughts. I don't think I've ever seen you look so happy, Val. You're practically glowing. Valerie smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. I am happy, she said. Happier than I ever thought possible. It's like, for the first time in my life, everything feels right. I'm marrying the man I love, I have the most amazing friends, and I finally feel comfortable in my own skin. You've always been beautiful, Val, Jess said softly. But seeing you now, so confident and at peace with yourself, it's truly inspiring. Valerie felt tears prick at her eyes.
You guys have been such a huge part of that, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know if I could have made it through my transition without your support.
Hey, that's what friends are for, Zoe said, reaching over to squeeze Valerie's hand. We love you for who you are, Val. Always have, always will. The limo came to a stop, and Valerie peered out the window, trying to figure out where they were. They seemed to be in a more secluded part of the city, surrounded by trees and greenery. Okay, time for surprise number 2, Zoe announced, opening the door and ushering everyone out. As they stepped onto the pavement, Valerie gasped. They were standing in front of a beautiful spa retreat, its entrance adorned with flowing fountains and lush gardens. Welcome to your day of pampering, Zoe said with a grin. We've booked the entire place for the afternoon. Massages, facials, mani-pedis, the works. Valerie felt overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness of her friends. You guys are too much, she said, pulling Zoe into a tight hug. Thank you so much. They made their way into the spa, where they were greeted by a team of smiling attendants. Each of them was handed a plush robe and slippers,
and they were led to a private lounge area to change. As Valerie slipped into her robe, she caught sight of herself in the mirror. The woman who looked back at her was radiant, confident, and utterly at peace. It was a far cry from the reflection she used to see, the one that never quite matched how she felt inside. "You okay?" Jess asked, noticing Valerie's pause. Valerie nodded, smiling. "More than okay. I was just thinking about how different things are now, how different I am." Jess came to stand beside her, wrapping an arm around Valerie's shoulders. "You've come so far, Val. We're all so proud of you." They rejoined the group, and soon they were whisked away to various treatment rooms. Valerie found herself in a dimly lit room, soft music playing in the background as a masseuse worked out the tension in her muscles. As she lay there, drifting in a state of relaxation, Valerie's mind wandered to her upcoming wedding. She thought about Alex, about the look of love and acceptance in his eyes when she'd first told him about her transition. He'd been her rock, supporting her through every step of her journey. After the massage, Valerie joined her friends for a group facial. As they lay back with their faces covered in various creams and masks, the conversation flowed freely. "So, Val," Emma said, her voice muffled slightly by the cucumber slices over her eyes. "Have you and Alex decided on a honeymoon destination yet?" Valerie smiled, careful not to disturb her face mask. "We're thinking about Greece," she said. "Alex has always wanted to see the islands, and I love the idea of spending our first days as a married couple somewhere so romantic." "Oh, that sounds divine," Jess sighed. "You'll have to send us lots of pictures." "Speaking of pictures," Zoe chimed in, "we should definitely take some today. You know, to commemorate your last days as a single woman." The idea sent a thrill through Valerie. She'd always loved photography, but for years she'd avoided having her picture taken, uncomfortable with how she looked. Now, the thought of capturing this day, of having tangible memories of her transformation into a bride, filled her with excitement. "I'd love that," she said softly. After their facials, they moved on to manicures and pedicures. Valerie chose a soft, pale pink for her nails, classic and bridal, but with a hint of her own personality in the subtle shimmer. As the nail technician worked, Valerie found herself lost in thought again. She remembered the first time she'd painted her nails, hiding in her room as a teenager, terrified of being caught, but exhilarated by how right it felt. Now, here she was, surrounded by her closest friends, openly embracing her femininity without fear or shame. "Earth to Val," Zoe's voice broke through her reverie. "Where'd you go just now?" Valerie blinked, coming back to the present. "Sorry," she said with a small laugh. "I was just remembering. It's funny how something as simple as getting your nails done can bring up so many emotions." Zoe's expression softened with understanding. "I can only imagine," she said. "But look at you now, getting all dolled up for your bachelorette party. You've come such a long way." "We've all come a long way," Emma added. "Remember when we first met in college? We were all such awkward messes." The group dissolved into laughter, recounting stories from their university days. As they talked, Valerie felt a deep sense of gratitude for these women who had stood by her side through everything. As the day at the spa drew to a close, they gathered once more in the lounge area. Valerie felt refreshed and rejuvenated, her skin glowing and her body relaxed. "All right, ladies," Zoe announced, clapping her hands together.
It's time for the final surprise of the day. Val, we're going to need you to change into something a little more fabulous. With that, she produced a garment bag, presenting it to Valerie with a flourish. Curious, Valerie unzipped the bag, gasping as she revealed a stunning cocktail dress. It was a deep, rich purple, her favorite color, with a sweetheart neckline and a fitted bodice that flared out into a flirty skirt. It's gorgeous, Valerie breathed, running her hand over the silky fabric. Well, don't just stand there admiring it, Jess laughed. Put it on! With her friend's help, Valerie slipped into the dress. It fit her perfectly, accentuating her curves and making her feel like $1 million. As she twirled in front of the mirror, she couldn't help but laugh with pure joy. You look amazing, Emma said, her eyes shining with happiness for her friend. Now for the finishing touches, Zoe said, producing a pair of strappy heels and a small clutch that matched the dress perfectly. Once Valerie was fully dressed, her friends gathered around her, each of them looking equally glamorous in their own outfits. Ready for a night on the town? Zoe asked, a mischievous glint in her eye. Valerie nodded, feeling a surge of excitement. Absolutely, she said. Let's do this. As they made their way out of the spa and back to the waiting limo, Valerie felt like she was floating on air. The day had been more perfect than she could have imagined, filled with love, laughter, and the kind of acceptance she'd once only dreamed of. Looking at her reflection in the limo's tinted windows, Valerie barely recognized herself. Gone was the insecure person she'd once been, replaced by a woman who radiated confidence and joy. She was Valerie, friend, bride-to-be, and finally, unequivocally, herself. As the limo pulled away, whisking them off to their evening adventures, Valerie settled back into her seat, surrounded by the warmth of her friends' chatter and laughter. Whatever the night held in store, she knew one thing for certain. She was exactly where she was meant to be, embracing her true self and stepping confidently into her future as a bride. The city lights blurred past the windows as they drove, each twinkling bulb seeming to mirror the sparkle in Valerie's eyes. She felt beautiful, accepted, and loved, not just by her friends, but by herself as well. It was a feeling she'd fought hard to achieve, and one she would cherish always. As the limo weaved through the bustling streets, Valerie's mind drifted to the journey that had brought her to this moment. She thought of the scared little boy who used to stare at dresses in shop windows, longing to wear them, but too afraid to admit it. She remembered the teenager who would sneak into her mother's closet, trying on clothes and makeup in secret, heart pounding with both excitement and fear of discovery. Those memories, once painful, now felt like stepping stones that had led her to this beautiful present. Each struggle, each moment of self-doubt, had ultimately brought her closer to her true self. Hey, Val! Zoe's voice cut through her thoughts. Penny, for your thoughts? You've got that faraway look again. Valerie smiled, turning to her friend. Just reflecting, she said, on how far I've come, how much has changed. If you'd told me 10 years ago that I'd be sitting here, celebrating my bachelorette party as my true self, I wouldn't have believed it. Emma reached over and squeezed her hand. You should be proud, Val. Your journey hasn't been easy, but you've faced every challenge with such grace and strength. And now look at you, Jess added. You're radiant, confident, and about to marry the man of your dreams. It's like watching a butterfly emerge from its cocoon. Valerie felt a lump form in her throat at her friend's words. I couldn't have done it without you all, she said softly. Your support has meant everything to me. Oh no, Zoe said, fanning her eyes dramatically. No tears allowed tonight, Missy. We've got partying to do. The group laughed, effectively lightening the mood. As if on cue, the limo came to a stop. Ladies, the driver announced, we've arrived at your first destination. Excitement bubbled up in Valerie's chest as they stepped out onto the sidewalk. They were in the heart of the city's entertainment district, the streets alive with the energy of a Saturday night. In front of them stood a chic cocktail bar, its facade glowing with soft, inviting light. Welcome to the Velvet Room, Zoe said with a flourish. I've heard their signature cocktails are to die for. As they entered the bar, Valerie was struck by the elegant ambiance. The lighting was low and intimate, with candles flickering on each table. The walls were adorned with vintage posters and Art Deco designs, giving the place a timeless feel. A hostess greeted them warmly, leading them to a reserved booth in a secluded corner. As they settled in, a waiter appeared with a tray of champagne flutes.
Compliments of the house,
he said with a smile.
We heard there was a bride-to-be celebrating tonight.
Valerie blushed as her friends cheered, raising their glasses in a toast. To Valerie, Zoe said, her voice ringing with sincerity. May your wedding be just the beginning of a lifetime filled with love, laughter, and happiness.
To Valerie,
the others echoed, clinking their glasses together. As they sipped their champagne, Valerie felt a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the alcohol. She was surrounded by love and acceptance, celebrating a future she'd once thought impossible. The night unfolded in a blur of laughter, music, and dancing. They sampled the bar's famous cocktails, each drink more colorful and creative than the last. Valerie found herself on the dance floor more than once, moving to the rhythm of the music with a freedom she'd never felt before. As the night wore on, they moved from the cocktail bar to a nearby club, the bass thumping through their bodies as they danced. Valerie lost herself in the music, her worries and insecurities melting away with each beat. It was well past midnight when they finally piled back into the limo, breathless and giddy from the night's adventures. This has been the most amazing night, Valerie said, leaning her head on Zoe's shoulder. Thank you all so much. It's not over yet, Jess said with a grin. We've got one last stop. Curiosity piqued, Valerie watched out the window as they drove, trying to guess where they might be heading. To her surprise, they pulled up in front of a 24-hour diner, its neon sign casting a cheerful glow in the early morning darkness. Comfort food, Emma explained as they climbed out of the limo. The perfect end to a perfect night. They settled into a booth, ordering a feast of pancakes, French fries, milkshakes, and other deliciously unhealthy treats. As they ate, they recounted the highlights of the night, laughing at silly moments and reminiscing about past adventures. Valerie looked around the table at her friends, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. These women had been with her through every step of her journey, from her first tentative steps towards transition to this moment, on the cusp of her new life as a bride. As the sky outside began to lighten with the first hints of dawn, Valerie realized that this night, this celebration of her journey and her true self, was drawing to a close. But it wasn't an ending, not really. It was a beautiful beginning, a stepping stone to the next chapter of her life. She thought about the wedding dress waiting for her, about Alex, and the life they would build together. She thought about the little girl inside her who had always known who she truly was, even when the rest of the world couldn't see it. That little girl was smiling now, finally free to be herself, surrounded by love and acceptance. As Valerie looked at her reflection in the diner's window, she saw not just a bride-to-be, but a woman who had fought hard to become her true self, and won. The night might be ending, but Valerie's journey was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning. And as she sat there, surrounded by the warmth of friendship and the promise of a beautiful future, Valerie knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them as her authentic, radiant self.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!